What's happening, Eli? What's up, man?
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. Glad to hear it. I'm gonna wait about 2 minutes, and I'm just gonna to see if anybody else shows up. But I was also gonna ask you in that 2 minutes, since we've got like 2 minutes to kill, if you have any questions of anything you've kind of been working on those 2/5s or those tritone subs or any of that kind of advanced stuff that we went over.
Not really, but I was trying to like apply that. Like I've done, like I went through and I did NOYO and I added those 2/5s, and I also did that on Take the A Train, but I put in like some extra stuff, like some 2/5s going into like the like 2/5s go like linking 2/5s. So like for the going into the fifth bar, I did like an E minor 7 to A7 going into that D minor 7. And stuff
Okay.
like that.
Okay. So like. So wait. So you did it right after that chord?
I wrote it down. I have it. Let's see.
No, that could work.
Or what I think I did is
Like that?
yeah, but well, actually, what I think I did is since there's a G sharp in the melody, I just had that as a big E7. Because if you
Okay.
did a A7, then that would clash, like that 7 and the A7 would clash with the melody.
So you did two dominants, E7 to A7?
No A7, just because that the G would clash with the G sharp. So
Right,
like,
right.
yeah.
Right. Okay, so you went like. Okay, yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's good. That's good. I mean, that's tasteful. That's a
Yeah.
tasteful substitution, and that's one of the things I was going to say. John Schofield did like a master class, and I'm a big fan of Sco. You know what I mean? Because he is so tasteful musically, right? I mean, he's not just chop city. I mean, he's got chops. Don't get me wrong, but he was saying like, when you do reharms and you do things like that, he goes, you can go too far. Like you can be so logical that your end product doesn't sound anything like the tune at all. So he said it's always important, and he goes, and I always tell this to young jazz guys. He said, make sure that when you get into that pool, that you're doing like these substitutions and you're doing like reharmonizations of standards, etc., that make sure that it's tasteful at the end of it. And he goes, you have to be really honest with yourself. Like you've already been working so hard, and you say like, but this logically makes sense, and there's so many cool opportunities I could solo on that. He's like, yeah, but does it still sound musical? Does it still sound like the song? And that's got to be the common denominator in all of it. So
Yeah.
that being said, I think that, yeah, you going from that, that's a nice, tasteful
Yeah.
substitution. So keep
It's
that in mind always.
Yeah. And talking to Schofield, I saw him live at the last Jazz Fest, right before Bela Fleck and the Flecktones.
Nice. That's wonderful, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Sco, man. And, I've only been to one Tri-C Jazz Fest. And it was the year that my wife and I moved back to Cleveland to like, to stay here. And it was Tommy LaPuma's 80th birthday celebration. And that was right before he passed away. And he had an all-star bill, like on one night. There was Christian McBride, who was the MC. You had the Hamilton Clayton Jazz Orchestra, Diana Krall with her trio. You had Al Jarreau, you had Leon Russell, and Dr. John, all on one bill. And this is all before like so many of them passed away. And I'm like, man, how lucky were we to see that show all in one night for one ticket? I mean, just like it was one show, you know what I mean? So where you got to see Sco and Bela Fleck, yeah, it's like that's the thing I love about the Tri-C Jazz Festival. It's wonderful. So
Well,
yeah.
I've had like two different master classes with John Clayton, and that's like been really, like that's probably been the coolest thing. Like I played like a F blues in front of him with like a pianist and a drummer, and I got some critiques from him one time.
That's always good. Yeah. Yeah, man. Look at you going. There you go. Proud of you, man. That's awesome. That's so important to just jump in that pool, man, and just play for these guys, and you know, don't take what they're saying like as a personal thing. And it's like, hey, this is a growing opportunity, and I want the most out of this, man. That's fantastic. That's totally fantastic. That's great to hear. Yeah, in fact, that was one of the cool things is that John Clayton came out with his bass, and Christian McBride came out with his bass, and they did a bass duet of Splanky. And I went like, whoa, that's the coolest thing, man. Speaking of, it's actually Christian McBride's birthday today. So, you know, I don't know if he'd ever watch this video, but if he did, you know, it's May 31st, 2020. Happy birthday, Christian McBride. We all love you. So, in some weird altered universe that he would be watching a NOYO video. You know. Okay, cool. All right, so nobody else is chatting in, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to go through what I call personally the everlasting scale exercise, but it's officially called the continuous scale exercise. So if you go into your NOYO Drive folder, right, I've added a couple of things to that folder called advanced methods, and there should be a couple of pages, and I'm going to share them with you as on the screen as well for anybody who is just watching. But what I chose to do is do two tunes, and there are two steps that you can do for this exercise. And the idea is that it's connectivity. That is the root word for what we're doing here, is connectivity. And what the idea and the premise is, and the challenge is with this, is to go and navigate from one chord change to the next without having root biases. So, because we've talked about that when, like, let's say in a 12-bar blues in F, you start out with F and you go up that F dominant, you know, I'm sorry, the F mixolydian, you know, scale, and then you go to that B flat 7 and you do the B flat mixolydian. We've already done that in a past video, right? So what this is doing is it says you can start on any one of the chord tones, or any one of the tones really in the scale, as long as you're connecting it seamlessly from chord change to chord change. So the idea is that it's like you can go up and down, but it's got to be continued. No jumps, no major jumps. And the idea is that you start off with quarter notes, and then after you're comfortable doing this exercise in quarter notes, because that gives you a little bit more time, one note per beat, to think about where you're going next. The second part to this is to go into full 8 notes. So you'll notice that there's a divide in the page for the two examples that I gave. And the first example I gave is Sonnymoon For Two, which is a blues in F, and I did both ways, as a quarter note exercise and then as an 8 note exercise. And then I just took a 16-bar bebop head by the great Tadd Dameron, who is from Cleveland, Ohio, by the way. So, little Cleatown love. He is a genius bebop composer, Tadd Dameron, and I did Lady Bird. And it is also in the same fashion. You have the first exercise of the continuous scale exercise in quarter notes, navigating through some of those changes and some of those 2 5s, as well as an 8 note version of that. But let me see here. I want to share the screen with some of the other things that I am doing here. So, yeah. Let's see. Sorry, that was the demo on my keyboard. My bad. So the first thing I want to do actually is I want to share this. And this is actually from chapter 6 of the Jazz Theory book by Andy Levine. And we've referenced this thing before in past episodes, and it talks about that. I think we did the modes out of this book. So what this is it's talking about the continuous scale exercise and how should you practice transforming things into melodic sequences, right? And what he took was Stella By Starlight, which is another big standard, right? But if you'll notice, he's got like the first couple of changes to Stella By Starlight, and he's written them all out in this kind of scale format. Da, da. Right? And that's the A7 sharp 11. And then that's where we end, because he's just doing the first 8 bars. But the idea is to do it for the entire song. And he's saying, okay, well, for that first chord, you can use the 6th mode of the G melodic minor. And then you go to the A7 alt. Then you could go, and he's doing each one of these in root positions first. The C minor 7, and it says 2nd mode of B flat major, which would be the C Dorian scale, which we went over way early in these info sessions. So see, everything we're talking about is coming back into full fruition. And then he gets to F7, 5th mode, which would be Lydian mode. F minor is F Dorian. B flat 7, flat 9, he's doing a half step, whole step diminished scale, which is one of those things that we were talking about is like the half diminished scale. And I think it was Aaron Moen. Yeah, Aaron was talking about that. And then to the E flat major, so it's just E flat Ionian, E flat major scale. A flat 7 sharp 11 means that it's the A flat Lydian, which means there's your sharp 11. And so you can go through each one of these sort of things, and it's a 4-page thing that he's doing here. Yeah, so he talks about how identifying the scale tells you where to go, right? And here is those same 8 chords, the same first 8 bars of Stella By Starlight, right? And this is all in that Google folder for each of you. And he talks about how you can navigate from these chord changes through quarter notes so that everything is seamless. You'll notice right there at the C minor 7 in the 3rd bar, he goes up A, B flat, C, and that's the crest. And then he starts coming down as well. He goes back down to B flat, and then he continues on to that F7, down to the F minor 7. He continues down a scale seamlessly to the B flat 7, flat 9, and he continues down into the E flat. Now that's where I'm going to pause, because you'll notice underneath that there is a sharp 4. That is important to note. If you're still catching up and you're watching this video later on, this is where you should really take note. And this right through here, the E flat major, you have a sharp 4. And what he's saying is when you get to the E flat, right, you can sit there. Where's that page? I think it's this one. Yeah. He's saying that as you descend the E flat major chord in the 7th bar, you expect an A flat from the E flat major scale because that is part of the key signature. There's the A flat. But rather than the A that is shown, he's saying he substituted A natural because the 4th scale degree in major scales is called the avoid note. And so as you practice this exercise, the rule of the day is to raise up a half step every avoid note. So what that breaks down to is that in major chords, major 7 chords, you want to take that 4th scale degree and you raise it up a half step to A natural. So it becomes this. Okay. And the second thing to remember is that, and he says that right there, as you practice this exercise, raise every avoid note. This means raising the 4th on all major chords and the 11th on all unaltered dominant chords. So for instance, that was an E flat major scale. So we're going E flat, F, G, A natural, there's that raised 4th, B flat, C, D natural, and E flat. But if it were an E flat 7 chord, he's saying to raise the 4 in the same way, that you would still go up that Mixolydian. Like, well, here's the Mixolydian naturally. But he's saying that in that same chord, to change that A flat to A natural as well. See? So those are the 2 rules. That's it. There's not like 4, 6, or 10 rules. 2 rules when you're doing this continuous scale exercise, okay? He's saying that number 1, oh, hold on. We got a chat question. Why is there a distinction between the sharp 4 and sharp 11 for major 7 and dominant chords? Is the dominant with the sharp 4 the Lydian dominant scale? Yes, yes, yes. And I'm going to get to our examples with this in just a second, because I've done one way and one the other way, okay? So yes, it would be a Lydian dominant scale. So what I've toyed around with this for a couple of years, you know, and I'm going to move this chat thing over here. Sorry, I've got a laptop I'm using today, so that's why I might seem a little bit closer, and the laptop is actually on the piano. So that's why you're hearing some of the demos and stuff today. So my apologies. But yes. So what I've toyed around with for a couple of years and what I've actually found is that this rule is great when it comes to raising that 4th in major scales. And it's great with the dominant chords. Except for one exception. And I don't know if Andy Levine would agree with this, but it sounds right to me. This is great for any standards. This is great for any of the quote unquote jazz canon tunes, except it doesn't sound right in the blues. So that's one of the reasons I've included a blues tune with this, is that it just doesn't sound right with the blues, because the blues are all dominant 7ths with a couple of 2/5s in the turnaround at the end. So that being said, I don't use this rule of raising the 4 or the 11, you know, in 12-bar blues, or really 16-bar blues. There's a couple of those too. But it does work for standards, and it especially works for bebop tunes. So that's why I've given these 2 examples. Now, what I do want to do, yeah, okay. So what I do want to do is I want to go back, and I want to play this quarter note exercise that he's got. I'm going to have to move this and move this. There we go. All right. Now, so I want to go back to this exercise and play it the way that he has configured it. Ooh, hold on. All right. So he's got the, this is the Stella By Starlight changes for the first 8 bars. So now with the quarter notes, the exercise would go, and notice he's starting on the 3rd. He's starting on G. There's that sharp 11-2 right there, that D natural. So the idea is that it seamlessly works. So if you've got a piano player going like, then as you're walking that, right? Then that sounds really hip with that. Now, this is a really cool part, especially for bass players. So zoom in right here, right? No pun intended with zoom. But the point is that for bass players, this is the essence of walking a great bass line, right? Because there's really no difference. You're outlining the changes, right? As you go through all this, except now, this is kind of like not only the gateway into walking efficiently through a lot of these changes, but this is really the gateway into that Dave Holland style of bass playing. Because if you read up on Dave Holland and his bass playing, they say like this guy, and Scott LaFaro for that matter too, in that they say that these guys were known as rootless bass players. You know, you've got like people like Charlie Hayden that's just anchoring down, you know, on them roots and those drones, and it sounds great. But there's other bass players that have a different perspective, right? And they go as a rootless kind of bassist. Like they're just kind of, they're outlining the changes, but they're not necessarily just hitting the E, walking up to A, walking up to C, and then back down to F, right? So they're kind of in the mix with everything else, the piano chords, the horn players, everything else. So this is a way to do that, you know what I mean? So that it's almost like, right? So, and then you have like piano players up top. Right? And then so that's the first step. And this is good for horn players to navigate through these changes without sounding like they're going. Right? Instead of doing like this and starting at root things, it eliminates root biases, which is super important, right? Now, as you get through and you do quarter notes, you get into 8 notes. Same premise, it's just that now you've got to make up twice the amount of space, right? So you've got to think twice as fast. So same chords, we're just going to do the first 4 bars that they have here. Right? But now he's got, I'm sorry, he's starting on the 9, which is the F sharp. I'm sorry, that's a B natural. I hit B flat. My bad. Right? So it's twice as hard. And the idea is that you will eventually get to the point that you don't have to write these out. So, I mean, you've got a whole folder of real book tunes that, you know, we were slated to play when originally this thing was meant to be in person. So everybody who's a part of this has access to all of those NOYO Jazz real book tunes. And what I would do if I were you is go through and then take that first step, like what I've done here for Sonnymoon For Two, and even if it's just a blues number, which I don't do the raised 4 for the blues. I'll repeat that. I don't do raised 4 for blues, but I do it for any other tune, right? And you can tell if it's a 12-bar blues tune, like Blue Monk, like Blue Train, like Straight No Chaser, Sonnymoon For Two, any of these 12-bar blues that we have, right? if it looks like a bunch of dominants like that, then don't do the raised 4, right? So let's go through this. The melody for Sonnymoon for Two is. And then you would go into this exercise. So. And then notice that you end, the last note is a B flat, which can go and repeat right back to the beginning. So you can do this exercise over and over and over and over and over again, right? And that's the idea, is that, you know, the great Lee Konitz, who we just lost about a month ago, he said that as you play standards, whether that's blues or whether that's, you know, All of Me or Stella by Starlight, he said, you go through it about 100 times, maybe about the 75th time you're going through the changes in a row, no nonstop, because you start to figure it out. You start to figure out what notes and what scales work as you're trying to do kind of these exercises of this continual thing, right? Now, eventually you'll want to get to the number 2 exercise, which is 8 notes, right? So as we're looking at that, it's the same thing. And then it would repeat back. See what I'm saying? So the idea is that you get faster and faster and faster. And if I were on my saxophone, then I could go way faster, but you wouldn't hear any chords. So that's why I'm trying to be very vulnerable and put my piano skills out there so you can hear chords and the melody at the same time. So trust me, if we were all playing together, I would have somebody just comping this, somebody, and then all of you could like work this, you know what I mean? So it's all good. So that's the idea for the blues in the continuous scale exercise. Now, it's a little bit more involved, and we start really implementing that sharp 4 rule as we go into Lady Bird, because it's not a blues, it's a bebop tune. And the very first chord, blammo, is a major 7, right? And I've even took the time to put this in finale and to put little asterisks below each note, whether it's in a dominant chord, like the G7 down here, or if it's in a major chord like this, right? So let's take a listen at those changes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's really what makes the tune cool, is that turnaround, all those 4 major 7 chords at the end. Yeah. So let's just listen to this in the quarter notes. Right? So you kind of get the idea. now you can navigate through these weird set of changes, right, that may be foreign to you seamlessly. And you do it over and you do it over and you do it over again to where you get to the point where it becomes faster and you're going, ah. See what I'm saying? That kind of fast, right? And then you can eventually get to, and see there's a lot more asterisks. You can see it now. As we have more notes, there's more rules that you got to follow. There's asterisk, 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 all throughout, right? So as we get to that, here's what it could be, and I'm going to go a little bit slower. So here we go. Ah. Ah. Now, I changed the last chord to not include the sharp 4, but there's a reason for that. Is that way it chromatically seamlessly connects back to the beginning. So once again, it's one of those things that I could change it, but it wouldn't be a musical change. So there's a musical change, an alteration that I made at the very last bar so that the turnaround could be complete to go back to the beginning. And that's the thing is, I mean, if you can get this going, right, that kind of fast, then you will be more than comfortable and you will have more than enough tools in your improv tool belt between the 2/5s that you know how to do and the scales that you know how to do, approaching these chord changes and these 2/5s, and you know even these major 7 chords, right? You will have enough tools in your improv tool belt that you can see a C major 7 and go, okay, I can play the C bebop scale, right? And then you go, hey, there's a 2/5. Right? And then all of a sudden you're making these changes. So hopefully this will give you even a better connectivity with the tools that you already know to help you navigate through all of these standards. So basically, as we're kind of wrapping up the whole jazz info sessions today, this is the 8th lesson out of everything that we've done. And throughout these 8 lessons, hopefully you've learned blues scales, pentatonic scales, 2/5, how to approach them from a vertical standpoint with the chord changes and licks. And you've also learned how to utilize different scales within that, from the bebop dominant, to the bebop major. And use those in chromatic fashion, right? Tritone substitution. So you could use that to approach Lady Bird as well. And now today you've been given like this info on how to do scalar exercises that connects all those different chords. So you can look at this as a whole now that you have this skill in your tool belt, or you can look at it as each kind of chord change or each kind of progression, and you can take those certain scales that work as well. And that's kind of the idea that we're really pushing with this whole thing. The last thing I really wanted to get to was I wanted to show you, let's see if I can do this. Can everybody see Bright Size Life now? Yes? Okay, good. So you'll notice that it doesn't really sound funky, There's nothing really funky or weird about that. But then you start looking, right? And you have G major 7. You're like, great, I know how to handle that. And then, bam, out of the blue comes a B flat over A. So does that mean that you just play A and then there's a B flat chord over it? Or is that just like a B flat major 7? What's up with that? Then you say, okay, well, I'll skip that, and then I'll keep looking, and there's a D9. I know how to do that. And then there's a D over C. Is that like a D dominant 7 just because the 7th is in the bass? Well, that's kind of weird. Okay, so that's 2 things I need to look at. And then you're like, B flat major 7, I'm good. And then look right here. To end the very last bar of the first inning, you've got G over A. What's that? And then you repeat, and then you get to the second inning, and it's G over B. And then, oh my God, there's more of these things, right? So you get to the bridge, and there's an A in the bass, but then you've got a G on top. Then you've got a G in the bass and an F on top. So now this is becoming a problem because there's a lot of these little fractionary kind of slash chords, right? Then you've got an E in the bass and an A on top. Then you've got an F sharp in the bass and a D on top. Then you got finally home field right here. Dominant 7. Then you finally got a D. So this becomes an issue. You're like, what is up with all these D over F sharp, A over E, F over G, G over A, G over B, G over A, B flat over A? And exactly what in God's creation do I play or improv over this stuff? Because here's the mistake that a lot of people will do. They'll see that B flat over A, and they'll just start running up that B flat major scale. And that's not right. That's when you could be a great player. You could be a young kid, and trust me, from somebody who's done this and been there, right? I've already made all the mistakes, so you don't have to. Is that I've looked at this tune. I'm like, yeah, I love Pat Metheny, man. Let's play some Bright Side's Life, and I'll kill the melody on the saxophone, and then I'll start improvising, and I get to that third bar, and everybody's like, So everybody's like nodding, having a good time, and then it's like, oh, that kid doesn't know what to do over that slash chord, right? Right. So what I've done is I have created this for you. Slash chords in jazz improvisation. This will be your guide, your legend, your map, whatever you want to call it, right? And I really wish that when I was in school, somebody would have given me this so that I didn't have cats go when I got to those slash chords, specifically the bridge. But what we have here is an exact thing that you need to know. So this is, and by the way, a disclaimer, and I put all this at the bottom. These are only examples with C in the bass note. Please note the intervallic difference between the bass note and the chord note on top. Use these suggestions on whatever intervallic slash chord you are working on, right? So in Bright Side's Life, you need to notice that this B flat over an A bass note, right? That's a half step apart. You need to know that, okay, so I need to go back to this page that Mr. Holloway gave me, And notice something that's a half step apart, right? Which is our first chord. You have a D flat over C. Do not play the D flat major scale over that. That will sound bad. Oh, right? So what do? How does this translate? Is there a way to translate this to chords? And the answer is yes. So when you have a D flat over C, which is a total Chick Corea chord, by the way, if you listen to Chick Corea, you've heard that chord before. Right? Right. So that actually breaks down to a C suspended fourth flat 9, which is C, F, G, B flat, D flat. Very similar sound to this. Okay? Or you could look at it as a D flat major 7. But you really have to look at it in a musical context to figure out which one of those it is. Okay? You can use the C Phrygian or the C Locrian scale whenever you see this. So C Phrygian is the third, right? Phrygian is 3. So what is C the third of? What key?
A flat.
Bingo! So you go up that A flat major scale starting on C with that chord. Ah, I bet. Now it sounds pretty all right. Right? Right. That sounds good. C Locrian is the 7th. So what is the 7th?
D flat.
Bingo, D flat. So now, yes, that D flat scale might work in certain spots, but you got to know how to start it, right? Which is on the 7th. Once again, this is all based on context. Now it starts to make sense. Sounds a whole lot better, right? Yeah. All right. So now you've got D over C. Whole step apart, right? That's the same thing as basically like a C7 sharp 11 or a C major 7 sharp 11. It's that dominant right there, either one. Or, and C Lydian is an idea. But once again, you got to look at the context for whether you want to use it more as a C dominant 7 sharp 11 or a C major 7 sharp 11. So there's different things, right? Okay. So it would be C Lydian if you had D over C. Lydian is 4, which is in the key of G, right? Now you have a scale that works over there. And it didn't have to be just up and down the scale. Remember, you could do different scalar ideas. Right? Just so to speak. Now, here's an easy one. Those are 2 difficult ones, but here's an easy one. You have an E flat over C. Translates to C minor 7. So C minor means you think Dorian, which is 2. So C is 2 in what key?
B flat.
B flat. So you've got E flat over C. I bet. Works. E over C. Here's one of the things you were just talking about earlier in the chat, Eli. You're ahead of the game, my man. E over C. Kind of sounds like some Miles Davis 70s stuff, right? It's this real nebulous kind of sound, right? Well, that translates to a C major 7 sharp 5. vampires. So now the idea is what you would do is you would use that C Lydian augmented. Okay. So the idea is that you're going up that C Lydian, which C is 4 in the key of G, right? Now, here's the other thing. If you've got C in the key of G, that's your C Lydian. Now, how do you make it C Lydian augmented? Well, you've got to think C first. So what would the augmented part be? Sharp 5, right? So what is the sharp 5 of C?
G sharp.
G sharp. So now, here's that C Lydian scale, C, D, E, F sharp, G, B, F sharp, G, A, B, C. Now you change that G to G sharp. Right? So now, over that chord, E over C. Ah, my bad. Or if you just see a chord that says C major 7 sharp 5, either one works. Right? So that's the way to do that. Now, here's another easy one. We keep going back and forth. F over C. F major 7. Easy, right? Because C is a part of the F chord, right? So now that you can use the F major scale. Or you can use that F bebop scale that we learned whenever you see a major 7 chord. Right? Okay. Now, the tritone. The dreaded tritone. You have an F sharp or G flat, whichever you prefer, over C. You could look at that slash chord as a C minor 7 flat 5 or C half diminished, right? Or you could look at it as a C altered chord, right? Where you would have sharp 9, flat 9, sharp 11, flat 13. Those 4 possible alterations, right? So that's basically the same thing as they're saying as this. There's not much difference in those sonorities, but how do you approach that? Well, we know that whenever we see a half diminished chord, that we can use that half step, whole step, diminished scale, right? Or you could use that C altered scale that we went through. That C half step, whole step. So let's play the chord. That works. That's actually what I prefer, you know what I mean? And then you have the C altered scale. That works just as well. But once again, keep in mind that it depends musically if you should go in an altered scale direction or if you should go in that half diminished direction, right? So for instance, if you had a slash chord of F sharp over C, followed by an F7 flat 9, followed to a B flat minor. That's basically like a substitution of a 2-5. So you would not want to use a C7 altered scale going to that F7, right? It's acting more like a minor 2-5. So you would definitely want to go with that C minor 7 flat 5 C half diminished sound, right? If you've got this. Right? You definitely want to do this. Right? because that sounds more musical. That seems to be the common theme today. G over C, not too bad. It's basically like a C major 9 or a C major 7 if you didn't want to include the 9, right? And once again, that sound, C major scale, or you could do the C bebop scale. Either one works. A flat or G sharp over C. Easy as pie. C is part of the A flat chord. So it's just an A flat major 7. Either way you want to look at it. And that's just the A flat major bebop scale or the A flat major scale. Or easy as pie. A over C. This is a cool one. And that translates to either C sharp fully diminished or a C13 flat 9. About the same kind of sonority, right? And the idea that you could use for either of those chord changes would be the C diminished scale. And remember, there's a cool lick that could go with that, right? So you've got right? There's that diminished lick. And it just keeps going. Right? Right. All right. B flat over C. There's the B flat chord. There's the C in the bass. So that could break down as a C11 chord, a C7 chord in its most basic form, a C7 sus4 with a 9. So you could have this, you could have this, or you could have this. And it's the idea is the same thing as this. It's very, very similar sonority, right? And that's why I keep playing these things back and forth, like the slash chord and then the chords that they mean, so you can hear in this video that they're basically the same thing, okay? Now, you can approach that chord, that B flat over the C. Oh, sorry. I'm just now seeing your question now. Why does B fit into a C diminished 7 if it's made up of C, E flat, G flat, and A? Well, because look at the diminished scale, right? Check it out. You've got C, D, E flat, F, G flat, G flat, A, B, C. There's that B. It's part of the scale, man. All right? Does that clear it up? Cool. All right. Now, let's move this chat thing over here so I can see. Okay. So the B flat over C, C dominant bebop scale. So C, B, B flat, and then right down the C major scale. So let's play it all together. C dominant bebop scale always works. C mixolydian. So C mixolydian is the 5 of the key of F. My bad. That works too. C blues scale. My bad. That's reaching a little bit, but it still works. And then you've got the B flat major scale that would work. So that all works right there. Now, B over C, right? You've got the B chord, and you've got C in the bass. That's another very Chick Corea sound. And you especially hear it like in those trumpets, whenever he's like clashing those trumpet chords and arranging, and like My Spanish Heart, and I think it was the Spanish Fantasy piece. Could have been the Alice in Wonderland one, but I think it's the Spanish Fantasy. You hear that a lot of times. You hear that. And it's basically, it breaks down to a C diminished 7. Here's that chord again, slash chord. Or it could be a C diminished with a major 7. Here's a slash chord. Here's C diminished major 7. Right? And the thing that you can use for that is a C diminished scale, which is exactly what we were going over, Eli. Right? So you've got this chord. Right? So there's lots of cool things that you can use. And that's all 12 possibilities. I think it's 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11. I'm sorry. 11 possibilities. Yeah, 11. So yeah, that's all 11 possibilities for slash chords that you will ever find, right? And that includes all the Pat Metheny stuff. So when we get to that bridge, right, and we see 4 sets of slash chords, well, now you know what to do. G over A, right? So you go down a half step, or there's a whole step, I'm sorry, whole step, not half step, right? Whole step in between both of those, right? So that would be the same thing as B flat over C. So you're like, oh, sweet. So I could just use the C dominant bebop scale or the C mixolydian scale. All right. So translate to that. All I have to do is use the A dominant scale or the A mixolydian scale, right? Because you've got A in the bass and a G right there. So A is the 5 of D, okay? That works. And then you could also use the A bebop scale, right? Cool. And then you've got the F over G. I'm sorry. Yeah, I like that voice better. Okay, so that's another whole one, right? Okay. Well, that's the same thing. You could use the G mixolydian, or you could use the G dominant bebop scale, right? So, or that's the bebop scale, or you could use the G mixolydian, and G is the 5 in the key of C. Cool. Then you got A over E, right? So let's go back and look. That is a 4th up, right? E to A is a 4th up. So what would that be? C over F. That is an F major 7. So we're going to look here, and that would be the same thing as an A major 7 when you have that E in the bass and an A on top. Right? Right. Now, D over F sharp. That's the last one that we're going to look at. That's the same thing, right? That's part of that chord of the D. So you would look at C over E. I'm sorry, not that one. Go down a 3rd. That would be A flat over C, which is the same thing as A flat major 7. All right, so basically saying that, and you got F sharp here, there. You can use that D major scale, or you can use that D major bebop thing. chromaticism going in there. And so now you can easily conquer the bridge and all the slash chords to Bright Side's Life. And you know what to do. So, all right. So I'm going to, let's see, stop share. All right. So I'm going to break it down to you, man. Do you have any questions over any of the things that we've kind of covered? I know that you've really been, you know, dedicated and you've been here for a lot of these sessions, you know, and I appreciate that. But do you have any questions about either modes or 2/5s or scales or anything? I mean, you've just kind of been asking as we go, which is good.
Specifically for like the slash chord stuff, I was working on Green Dolphin Street earlier today, and that for the A section, that's got like a ton of slash chords, but those are like major 7 chords instead of just that pure triad. Would you still use those same principles even though it's a major 7?
Well, actually, I'm glad you brought something up, because if you look at like certain tunes, certain standards, like Green Dolphin Street, I think the very last line of Someday My Prince Will Come, you have these pedal points, and that's what the whole function of the slash chord is that you're going like, or, but that's just to provide like a pedal to the end, right? And in Green Dolphin Street, it's very similar as well, because you've got like, sort of thing, right? And that's a tune I need to revisit, like bad. But the idea is that, yeah, it's like a pedal point with the chords floating on top. So musically speaking, it's one of those things that you would definitely, if you had a group, you would definitely want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So like if you had a saxophone player or something, right, like a tenor player that was really into like Coltrane changes and really thinking forward as far as improv goes, and they wanted to take those as slash chords and improv in those same manners, then yeah, you need to make sure that the piano or the guitar player is doing the exact same idea, right? Or with the bass player, right? So if like you're holding down that pedal, you know it's to create these other kind of chords, right? And once again, is like what I was saying with that thing about with the Herbie Hancock example last week with Maiden Voyage, right? So you could sit there and go, you know, and you could keep dancing around with the same chordal sonority, half steps above, and keep going. You hear McCoy Tyner do that all the time, right? And that's a cool thing too, especially if you're keeping that bass on a pedal. See what I'm saying? So that's one thing to do, especially but you got to make sure that if you're going to go that advanced, everybody's got to be on the same page. Otherwise, it just leads to confusion. And that's one of my favorite Bill Evans quotes is he goes, it's better to be simple and know what you're doing and than to build off of confusion, right? So that's a loaded question, Eli. There's no simple answers in jazz, man.
Can I ask one more thing about that tune?
Sure.
Because, so I've heard like my favorite recording of that is I think it's like the Wynn Kelly trio with John Coltrane and doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I know Paul Chambers for like the intro, he's doing like a more like groove thing, just keeping on the E flat. But then at some point it goes to walking. But when you're walking like that, are you just sticking within like the E major sonority for that? But since you don't want to like you're just basically taking like stuff from the E major scale mostly, so then you're keeping it in E major rather than like going to, because if you want to keep that pedal point, then you don't want to like screw it up by going to like E major or whatever it is.
Right. No. I mean, that's a good question and a really good point. One thing to note is that, you know, Green Dolphin Street is one of those standards that it kind of breaks down, right? So there's like a Latin swing, Latin feel to it, generally speaking, right? I mean, Bill Evans did it that way. Wynton Kelly did it that way. A bunch of different folks have done. I think Miles even did it that way. You know what I mean? With Train. The thing to keep in mind is, and I remember April's another one that's a lot like that. Like you've got that G major section that's like a Latin, and then it swings in the bridge sort of thing. And generally speaking, whenever you've got that Latin swing, Latin alternation thing going on, that the Latin part is generally pedaled, okay? Whether the chords are moving in that cool kind of thing or not, you know, it's always... Right. So they're going on, but it's that still, that's that pedal groove, so to speak, right? And then it's... That's so, and then they start walking during the swing section. But then that walking thing is exactly what the same rules apply that you would apply for any swing tune when you walk. You know, you stick to the changes, right? And that's where that continuous scale thing could really help out tremendously, because then all of a sudden you're not root biased, right? So no matter if that pedal is like a tritone apart, man, you're good. You just go up or down a half step and you can start walking down them scales smooth and continuous through all those 2/5s and whatever chord changes there are. And that's the cool part about it. You know what I'm saying? Does that help kind of answer that? I mean, like I said, there's no magic bullets, man. It's just as much listening as it is working, and you know, and taking the things that you like. I mean, nobody says that you have to like 110% of the stuff that Paul Chambers does, right? But you could love 65% of it, man. And so take the 65% that you do dig, and take like the other like 10% from Dave Holland, the other 10% from like Scott LaFaro, and I don't know, maybe another 10% from you know, Charlie Hayden, and 5% from Jocko or something. I don't know, you know, and then just mix and match. I mean, that's the great part about it, man. You just, you know, that Eli sound whenever you're walking a bass or you're soloing or what, that should be a blend, like a big Vitamix of all the things that you love, man. That's what makes everybody individualistic, right? Like I'm a saxophone player through and through, but I love Bill Evans, you know, and just all the things that he can do. But I also love Wayne Shorter, man, and I love Duke Ellington, and they couldn't be sometimes more far apart. And that's the cool part, is that, I don't know, I'm a weird mix of all this stuff, you know, but first and foremost, I'm a Charlie Parker disciple. Like I love bebop, man, you know? So, I mean, that's the thing, like Bird's approach doesn't necessarily mesh with Bill Evans's approach, but there's things I love about each. And I love Coltrane's passion. You know what I mean? That man could wail on one note and kill, you know what I mean? Just on a high note, just wham, you know? And it's like, Parker never had that passion, but I love that part about John Coltrane's music. And I think that's what's important, man. It's like, you know, you have certain things that you take. Like, I don't agree with a lot of what musical things that Wynton does, right? But I love when he's got that half out thing and a trumpet, like a trumpet plunger. It's like, wow, 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 and he's like growling with it, man. Yeah. So it's taking all the things you love, whether it's being a bass player, especially if you're like a drummer. You know, God help you if you're a piano player, because you got all these inspirations, you know, Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, Bill Evans, Keith Jarrett, Brad Mehldau, all of them are out there, you know. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. So it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of listening. There's no magic bullet, and just be you, you know. I hate to sound like one of those little, the more you know, NBC after school specials, but it truly is just like, be you, man. You know, and nobody's ever gonna, you know, criticize you for that, you know, or everybody will, and then you're just like, well, I can't help who I am, so too bad. All right, cool. Well, Eli, I just want to extend out a personal thanks to you, man, for really being a part of these sessions and helping it go through. We might send out like a thing. I don't know if Dr. Holter is planning on doing that or not, since we're just making this like a service that we're giving to all y'all. But there might be like a questionnaire of like 10 questions, like what did you like, what did you not like, how would you improve it, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know, but if he does decide to do that, be on the lookout for that. That would surely help. I will say this, something that I think you would be very interested in, an idea that we're kicking around for the fall season, especially if we're going to online, that things to, you know, offer services to kids and stuff like that, is we're thinking about having, and we would open this up to actually everybody, not just like a jazz combo people, right? Is doing a potential listening club, like a jazz listening club, right? In which we would say, okay, your homework for the week is to listen to this one album and be ready to talk about like this one or maybe these two songs from that album. And then just talk about like what questions you may have that you heard, or things that you liked about it, things that, you know, you felt when you listened to it. So, I mean, that could be real hip. You know what I mean? I don't know if there's enough interest, but it would go from like Ornette Coleman to like Jelly Roll Morton to like Bill Evans to like Jocko to like Snarky Puppy to like everything. You know what I mean?
Well, one thing, I don't know if I've said this before, but I'm participating in the Tri-C, their jazz academy, so I've been doing their program. And when we were still back in session, like, we started pretty much every rehearsal with like 15 or 20 minutes of just listening to a record or whatever, like listening to some song that one of the faculty had picked out, and that was like, and then we would all talk about it and have questions and stuff like that. And it was like tons of different stuff. It was people who maybe they died recently, just somebody that like one of the faculty had an affinity for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love it, man. Like my interests are all the way from King Oliver to like Dave Douglas and John Zorn, man. So I mean, they're everywhere, you know. And I think that listening to just not necessarily like all the classics, but just a broad range of stuff could be really cool. You know what I mean? Especially if you got like some symphonic players who are maybe interested in jazz, but they don't know where to start. You know, then this is a good kind of open door potential session to say like, hey, we're not going to be playing this stuff. We're just talking about it. And like, it's great that you're just listening to this stuff. And at least now you're an informed listener, because now you know why you like it or why you don't like it, you know? And I think that that could be kind of cool just to do for like, I don't know, 30 minutes, an hour, 40 minutes, something like that, you know? So be on the lookout for that too.
Okay. Can I have one suggestion for that?
Sure.
Like, I would say starting out, keep it to more like straight ahead stuff, not like, I wouldn't say play like Ornette Coleman on the first one, so, because that's gonna drive out anybody that's gonna
No. We're not gonna start with Ornette, man. No, we probably start with somebody like Brubeck, maybe Miles, kind of Blue, because that is like the quintessential album. It could be Louis Armstrong. You know, there's a great Louis Armstrong Duke Ellington duet album that they did that's just phenomenal. It could be Billie Holiday. You know, that's something that we, you know, Lady Day's right behind me, I see. So, man, you know, that's something that we really don't talk about a lot, is jazz vocalists, and how us instrumentalists can take ideas of phrasing a melody from the vocalists, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons I listen to Sinatra, is not just because I think he's a bad boy, you know, but like his phrasing is incredible, you know? So, yeah, definitely, man. So be on the lookout for that. And that's a great suggestion. Yeah. But I wasn't gonna, I mean, maybe week 3, week 4, we drop in The Shape of Jazz to Come or something, you know, but not right away. No, I don't want to like have like 10 kids and like 2, you know? So no, definitely. And that goes with a lot of other things too, like late John Coltrane, you know, we're not going to put Ascension in front of them, you know what I mean? But yeah, also, before we get off here, I want to remind you that we are doing our NOYO Knowledge session at 4, and it's the difference between orchestral bass and jazz bass playing. So all bass players should check this out. You know what I'm saying? So, and I know that you probably have a bajillion questions, because there's bass things I can't answer that Gavin could easily answer, because he does both of those very well. So be on the lookout at that at 4.
Just one more question. Is NOYO, because I thought last week was the last session. Is this the last session then?
This is the last session, session number 8.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem. And that's the thing, is that hopefully, fingers crossed, this thing will be, life will be back to somewhat normal sooner than later. And that's one thing that I've been trying to keep, you know, my spirits up and still be informed. But I really, more than anything, I enjoy playing alongside y'all. You know what I'm saying? Having your instruments out, because that's how you really get it, is when you're actually digging into the music and playing it in real time. And that goes for trumpet players, bass players, piano players, whatever, you know, drummers especially. But yeah, we're going to get there. But the point is that we're keeping all these up on YouTube. and that way they're a point of reference. So if I say, you know what, you need to go back and check, if you need to go back and check out the 2/5s, check out one of those 2/5 lessons from the NOYO Jazz Info Sessions. And so they'll be up here for forever, you know. So that's a good part about it. So your questions will be cemented in history, man. All right, so I will hopefully see questions from you for Gavin at 4. It's a great session. Don't miss it, all right? Thank you again, Eli. Be on the lookout for all future stuff. Appreciate it so much, man. Take care of yourself. Stay healthy. Keep practicing. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.